Welcome to all of you. Today we celebrate the second Sunday of Easter. Long time ago we started Lent, do you remember? Yes? And Lent was 40 days, and some of us made resolutions, right? And some of us even kept them. How many kept their resolutions? 2, 3, okay. How many remember what their resolution was? Okay. So it's one thing not to do it, it's something else not to even remember it. You know, that's kind of sad. So the church gathers us for the season of Lent for 40 days to prepare for the most significant feast in the history of the church, the resurrection of Christ. And so the church then doesn't celebrate Easter for a day, it celebrates it for 50 days. For 7 weeks, we will be celebrating Easter. And unlike Christmas, which was kind of not a significant feast at all in the early church, in fact, the day for Christmas wasn't even set until the church was around for several generations. But Easter was always known because of the moon. And you know, right? You know when Easter, tell me when Easter comes. The first Sunday after the first full moon, after the vernal equinox, okay? And it won't ever be this early again in our lifetime. Did you know that? I think they said the next time it'll be this early is 90 years. So unless you have exceptional genes, I'll be 160 or something. So we're not going to see it again this early. But anyway, as we move along in this time, we celebrate Easter for 7 weeks. Now, we do that because this is the most significant feast. And just like Lent, during this 7 weeks, we're called to a task of asking ourselves and challenging ourselves as to what do we really believe. Jesus is an historical figure. He walked the earth. His presence was noted not just by the scriptures, but other people such as the Roman historian Josephus, who noted the fact that he, in fact, lived and died. He was born in Palestine. He grew up there, apparently, and his life was known not so much, but his death, in fact, was, because it was an event of the Roman government. And so the Roman government made note of his death. So we know he died, and in order to die, you have to live, right? So we know those things about him. And we also know that he taught that he would rise again. Now, many people saw him die. Crowds gathered around. People that he did not know, people he did know, saw him die. They saw him taken down from the cross, dead. They saw him buried in a tomb. What the church celebrates is the fact that many witnesses then saw him 3 days later walking the earth again. 3 days later, the tomb was empty, and the man that they had seen walk the earth die was now alive again. He was walking around in his body. And if you note the post-resurrection scriptures, he was always eating. I think he was part Italian, but he was always eating. And that was to show that, in fact, his body was real, that he had indeed risen from the dead. Now, the challenge for us is this. Like Thomas in the gospel today, we need to know that this resurrection was real without the stubbornness of Thomas. That we have to take the word of the many witnesses who saw him. We have to take the word of the generations of people who were touched by those witnesses who acclaim the fact that the tomb was empty. Now, if the tomb was empty and we believe that needs to change our behavior, because what that means is that life goes on. This church is designed in a circle, and this altar is a circle, because a circle represents God. There is no beginning, there's no end. It's one big circle. And through baptism, we enter into that circle of God. And once we enter into that circle of God, we cannot be thrown out from it unless we choose through sin to be cast aside. And so the message of Easter is very simple, that Jesus describes the resurrection as a great banquet. He describes the resurrection as this great dinner where everyone will eat and be filled and be free of disease and worry and be free of all that. Now, do we believe that? That's the question. Do we believe the tomb was empty? And if we do, then we believe that there is a resurrection for us all. Now, if heaven is a banquet, wonder what hell is? Eternity on Slim Fast? Huh? Whatever it might be, the point is there's a decision to be made. And that's our decision. Do we enter into that circle and choose life, or do we not? And so, just like Lent, the 7 weeks of Easter call us to make our lives consistent with the teaching of Jesus. Call our lives to be consistent with what we say we believe. Resurrection then becomes our choice. We can either enter into the salvation that Christ has given us, or we can choose not to. And if we choose not to, we take our chances. It's there. It's a gift. Is the tomb empty for you? And during these 7 weeks, we need to look at ourselves, and we need to challenge ourselves, and we need to either rejoice or be sad. Because we're either going to go to the eternal banquet or we're not. All that eating that Jesus talks about was always in the context of community, the context of being in love with other people, the context of being with people in camaraderie and hope. And so heaven is not just about eating, okay? Makes you kind of believe maybe you can take it with you. Or at least part of it. But we need to make a choice. Is the tomb empty? Historians have said that Jesus lived and died. Witnesses have said that he rose. People saw him, ate with him, walked with him. We, like Thomas, have to believe without seeing. We, like Thomas, have to pray the prayer that he prayed, my Lord and my God. Jesus is real. The tomb was empty. A man who had died walked and ate and talked after he died. What do we believe? We have to embrace that truth that Jesus has risen from the dead, and he invites us to the eternal banquet. He invites us to live forever. Life is not ended, but merely changed. What do we believe? That's the challenge. And if we believe, and if we want to enter into that circle of life, then our lives have to be lived in consistency with that Lord Jesus. Every word we speak, every action we perform has to be in consistency with Christ. For it's then that we enter fully into salvation and come to the banquet of life. Our choice. The banquet's set. It's our choice. Are we going or not? Be at peace.